Mrs. Wilson, thank you for coming today. What happened to you is deadly serious. You were the victim of a national security breach. If this was a law enforcement context, something I'm familiar with, it would be equivalent to disclosing the identity of an undercover police officer who's put his life on the line and the lives of all those who help that officer. Our job on this committee is to find out how the breach happened. Now, I'd like to show you a chart that we've prepared on the committee. You'll see it up on the screens, and we're putting it up here on paper. That chart is a graphic depiction of all the ways that your classified CIA employment was disclosed to White House officials and then to the press. Every colored block on that chart is an individual, and every arrow shows a disclosure of classified information. That classified information was your CIA employment status. And the arrows are based on the testimony in Mr. Libby's criminal case and press reports. This chart shows over 20 different disclosures about your employment. Let me ask you, looking at this chart, are you surprised that so many people had access to the classified information about your CIA employment?
Yes, I am, Congressman, and I'm also surprised at how carelessly they used it.
What was your expectation about how the government would handle the classified information about your work and status?
My expectation, Congressman, was that as of all CIA operations officers, every officer serving undercover, that senior government officials would protect our identity. We all take oaths to protect classified information and national security.
Prior to the time that you learned that your status had been disclosed, you never authorized anyone to disclose your status, did you?
Absolutely not.
And no one ever approached you and asked for permission to disclose any classified information about you?
No.
Vice President Cheney never approached you and asked if he had your permission to disclose your status, did he?
No.
Karl Rove never approached you and asked whether he had your permission to disclose your status, did he?
No.
Now, this isn't even a complete picture because, as you can see on this chart, we don't know, for example, who told Karl Rove your status. There's a black box up there, and it says unknown. And there are two arrows from that, one pointing to Vice President Cheney and one pointing to Karl Rove. So that's an unanswered question right now. Now, I can imagine that you followed the proceedings and the press pretty closely over the past few years, have you not?
Yes.
Do you have any theories about who told Karl Rove about your status?
No, I do not. There was much evidence introduced in the Libby trial that provides quite a bit, but I have no. It would just be guesses.
Well, that's what this committee's investigation is all about, following all the links in the chain from their sources to their destination. Now, it's been reported that Mr. Rove had a discussion with Chris Matthews about you, and the report was that Mr. Rove told Mr. Matthews, Valerie Plame is fair game. You recall that?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to ask you to forget for a moment that he was talking about you. Imagine that he was talking about another undercover agent working on sensitive issues, and that undercover agent's life was on the line. Do you have a reaction to that?
Absolutely. This happened to me, but I like to think I would feel just as passionately if it had happened to any of my former colleagues at the CIA.
One final question. Is there any circumstance that you can think of that would justify leaking the name of an undercover agent?
No, Congressman.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hodes. Before we yield our time, we have a long list of people that seem to have either intentionally or inadvertently passed on your status and your name as a CIA agent, and that included President, Vice President, Scooter Libby, Karl Rove, Ari Fleischer, just to name a few. Did any of those people, the President, the Vice President, Karl Rove, Scooter Libby, Ari Fleischer, did any of them ever call you and apologize to you?
No, Chairman.
None of them ever called you to express regrets?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Plame. It's clear that administration officials knew you worked for the CIA, but did they know that your status was that of a covert agent?
I have no way of knowing, but I can say I worked for the Counterproliferation Division of the Directorate of Operations, and while not all, many of the employees of that division are in fact in covert status.
But you don't have, I mean, I think one of the issues here was not that you worked for the CIA, because that was obviously widely known in the administration, but for the crime to have been committed, I understand they had to have known that you were covert, and you don't have any direct linkage that they knew that you were covert at that point.
Again, Congressman, I'm not a lawyer, but as I said in
You don't
my,
have any direct knowledge that...
No, but
Okay,
as I said
that's
in my
fine.
opening comments, the fact that they knew that I worked for the CIA, that alone should have increased their level of diligence.
I think, look, we all agree that everybody needs to protect national security and protect the identities of undercover and covert agents. But should the CIA have done more to adequately protect people as well and say these are covert agents, shouldn't be outed? Did the CIA have a responsibility here as well?
I think that Congress might think about reviewing the Intelligence Identities Protection Act
Yeah.
and seeing what went wrong and where it needs to be perhaps rewritten.
I mean, look, they're supposed to, the CIA is supposed to report to Congress each year on the steps taken to protect this highly sensitive information, and I'm told few, if any, reports are even filed. So I think there's a responsibility from the CIA, and I think what's missing, and I think from at least from a criminal perspective, not from a policy, but from a criminal perspective, that the special prosecutor in this case looked at that and found that the people who may have been saying this didn't know that you were covert, and you don't have any evidence to the contrary.
That, I think, is a question better put to the special prosecutor, Congressman.
Shouldn't the CIA have made sure that anyone who knew your name and your work be told of your status? Would that have been helpful in this case? That would have made it very clear if anybody leaked it at that point, they were violating the law at least.
The CIA does go to great lengths to create and protect all kinds of covers for its officers. There's a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy that goes into that. And the onus also, the burden falls on the officer himself or herself to live that cover, but it's not a perfect world.
The Intelligence Identities Protection Act makes it a crime to knowingly disclose the identity of a covert agent, which has a specific definition under the Act. Did anyone ever tell you that you were so designated?
I'm not a lawyer.
That's
But-
why I asked if they told you. I'm not asking for your interpretation.
No, but I was covert. I did travel overseas on secret missions within the last 5 years.
I'm not arguing with that. What I'm asking is, for purposes of the Act, and maybe this just never occurred to you or anybody else at the time, but did anybody say that you were so designated under the Act, or was this just after it came to fact?
No, no one told me that, and
How about
that's not-
after the disclosure? How
Pardon
about
me?
after the disclosure? Did anyone then say, gee, you were designated under the Act, should not have happened? Did anybody in the CIA tell you at that point?
No.
Okay. Since the disclosure of your identity, have you been offered other positions within the CIA?
Yes, I went on to other jobs with commensurate responsibility.
No demotion or anything?
Pardon me?
No, you didn't experience any demotion?
No.
Did anyone at the CIA tell you your career path was damaged by the disclosure?
Yes.
Now, you